the Ticats Audio Network. This is the CFL This Week with Bubba O'Neil.
And down the stretch they come. The race to the postseason is officially underway in the Canadian Football League. 3 games this week, 3 upsets, and what appeared to be a sure thing in both the East and the West divisions may not be what it seems. This is the CFL This Week. I'm your host, Bubba O'Neil. We have yet another outstanding, informative, and opinionated, most important, panel. He's the host of Gameplay on TSN 1050, also writes on CFL.ca. Let's welcome our friend Matthew Cauz.
Good, I guess more. No, it's good afternoon. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Great to be here.
It's the podcast world. It doesn't matter. It could be good morning. It could be, come on,
you're right.
That.
Theater of the mind. When is it? What day is it? What time? No one knows.
Well, folks, and if it's going down in Steeltown, he's always the first to know from the Hamilton Spectator. Thanks for joining us, Steve Milton.
Bubba, Matthew, how are you? I'm the only guy here without a mic in the sound. What, you guys got a gig afterwards or something?
I'm a professional broadcaster sometimes. So
Man, you look like you're the front man for an alternative rock band there. Mid-90s.
I always saw him as more of a jazz guy, quite honestly.
Oh, yeah, with his glass of wine, of course. Yeah.
Yes,
yes.
yes,
oh, yeah.
yes.
Absolutely.
Hey, folks, the annual Tim Hortons Smile Cookie campaign is back. And, 100% of the proceeds from sales of Smile Cookies will support charities and community groups across country. To participate in this year's Smile Cookie campaign, visit your local Tim Hortons restaurant or place and order through the Tim Hortons mobile app for delivery. All right, guys, let's get right down to it. I mean, the biggest shocker of the week, no doubt. And Tiger Cats score a season-high 48 points and stun the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, the 2-time defending champions. I'll go with you first, Matt Cauz, because you were the only person on the CFL.ca panel to pick the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And I'm sure you took a lot of abuse for it, but you were right. Are these the real Ticats?
What's that?
Are these the real Ticats?
I don't know if these are the real Ticats. It's certainly the best version of them, but you have Dane Evans, 5 touchdown passes, which was more than he had in like his last 4 starts. What impressed me the most was a couple things, and we could talk all about Dane Evans, but I'll put Dane to the side for a moment. One was the pass protection. Evans had all day to throw the ball against that Winnipeg defense. That was the first thing that stuck out for me. And the other was, there was a bunch of times, and it won't come up on the stats, where like on 2nd and 10, the pass rush got to Collaros. And it doesn't necessarily have to be sacks, but the pressure forcing inaccurate passes. Well, we saw a couple times where Winnipeg was getting close to scoring a touchdown, but the pass rush got there at just the right moment, forcing field goals over touchdowns. So those were the 2 non-Dane Evans things that impressed me the most.
What about you there, Steve? And he may be right there. I mean, there's no doubt that Dane is the story of the game.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that Hamilton team played well on all 3 aspects, special teams and defense included.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to overly praise the defense here, but I will praise them for big plays. A couple of things happened there, and Matty nailed them there. Obviously where Dane was at, as much psychologically as anything else, given that all week he talked an awful lot, and for 2 weeks he's talked an awful lot about that. Ever since he corralled Matthew Shinetti and I after the game in Toronto, and just needed to explode with the mea culpas. And then for the 2 weeks after that, and talked a lot about working with a team psychologist. It was hard for a player in a team sport to do. Individual sports, they do it all the time and they're quite proud of it. But team sports guys, you hear about it less, when they do it, and
especially football.
Football, and because there is that macho thing, and especially with the quarterback and those kinds of things. So hats off to him for that, for wearing his heart on his sleeve on that one, and for doing something about it, and to admit it, and it seemed to have some effect. And in fact, he said something about it after the game, and so that part, and Matt's right about the blocking. I would say part of that, Matthew, was schematic. So I've been ripping, not too hard, but obviously, and not as hard as Ticat Nation has, offensive coordinator Tommy Condell for his play calling. And I thought his play calling and the work of Mike Gibson as the offensive coach, line coach, was really something. And Wes Hills coming in added that size, and that was specific to the. Well, they wanted to shake some things up, but it was very specific to who the defensive ends were, given the size of Wes Hills, and he made a difference there. And he had some really hard runs. He only had 50 yards, but a couple of those hard runs for first downs. The defense made big plays. In fact, we were saying off camera, Zach Collaros' game reminded me a lot of Dane Evans's games this year. A lot of yardage, some now more touchdown passes, of course, but two interceptions and a key fumble for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Right. Which, he had 350 some odd yards in passing. Right. But he came up short. I would say the key drive of all year, and this, everybody went into this, everything we've talked about so far, Evans, Hills, what Matt said about the blocking, and what I just said about Tommy Condell came in. There was a 7-minute and 23-second drive.
Yeah, that answer
in the fourth quarter when the other team had, first of all, Hamilton had given up an easy touchdown to make it to 10. That was one of the problems with the defense. They were
41-31. It was 41-31 with just over 9 minutes to go. All the momentum was on Winnipeg.
And then Hamilton goes 2 and out.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think then I think they scored.
Winnipeg score again.
To score to make it 10. And then Hamilton botched the kickoff return.
Yeah, they were at the 20-yard line.
They were on 20-yard line. So they go 90. Yeah. This is those were all of the factors. If you look at their 9 losses this year, I bet you on 6 or 7 of them, that kind of thing happened in the fourth quarter, almost to the letter. And the whole stadium went quiet. Dane and Hills and some good play calling, a 3rd and short, Dane rushing for that 9 yards, which often they get 7 on, them getting on the 2nd and long, getting 10 instead of 9 like they normally do. And they hold the ball for 7 minutes and 23 seconds into the win, and then scored on a perfect dime. Beautiful drop and a good catch by Unger. Everything worked there. That was the most significant drive of the entire season.
100%. And to add to that drive started with 3 runs.
Right.
And just as you mentioned, Steve, about hard running, we saw it there. Dane Evans running for it on 2nd and 9, where he cuts smart. He cut up the middle, saw the wide open space, was able just to get past Big Hill for that first down.
Yeah, and it wasn't just Big Hill. Like he made a great play at Big Hill to turn and to come forward because he was going to be stopped short, but he also got by Jefferson too by deciding to go early. So that put Jefferson off on one foot, and so when he got his shoulder on him or his hand on his shoulder, he couldn't bring him down. Had he waited a split second longer, Willie is planted, and he gets him.
And also, Steve, sorry, just one other point on this. Bubba, but when you mentioned earlier about going to see the psychiatrist, Carla Edwards, on one level, it's so great for that, because what we need to have in professional sports, especially football, is where we feel that going to a psychiatrist is the same as going to the strength and conditioning coach. Same as going to the coach to help rehab your knees. Because what did we see from Dane Evans? We saw decisive throws, confident throws. Compare and contrast Dane Evans after that 3 interception game against the Argonauts with a 1-pick return for a score, where he is sitting by himself on the bench and he just seems so lost and confused and like, what's going on? Versus after that touchdown pass on that great drive, Steve, which is the best drive of the season, where he is just pumped up and his teammates are coming up to him and celebrating with him. I'm going to write a column for CFL.ca, and it's basically based on that moment at the end of the game. I was thrilled for Dane. I was thrilled for him in that offense. So it was a great moment.
I ran into him socially yesterday, and we talked a little bit about that, and he's still pretty pumped. And, you've got to make sure that you can't be too defined by any one moment. But he was right after, the day after the game. So he was, but yeah, and it's very important to have confidence and to have visible confidence from the quarterback. I mean, he ran that huddle. I talked to a couple of guys. What happened in that huddle was pretty interesting on that 7-minute drive. We're not accepting a field goal. We're not accepting a field goal right from the start of the drive.
Well, I will say this, though, in terms of the emotional outburst and what we did see much of the early season, and I'll go as far back as that loss to the Elks, where they blew a multi-point lead, and Dane Evans sitting on the bench, and he had to be consoled by, at the time, Nick Arbuckle,
Right.
who was the backup quarterback. I mean, I'd never seen anything like. I'm like, I don't know if I've ever seen a backup quarterback of another team consoling and starting quarterback of another team. And that goes to show you how, I guess, and I'll use the word low emotionally, he sort of dipped. So yeah, great response. But I have to say this, guys, that win almost means nothing without what happens coming up this week against Montreal. The only two teams there, Matt, that have beaten the Winnipeg Blue Bombers this season are going to meet each other with really a huge playoff points on the line.
You know what? It's tried in. You're right. I didn't even think about that. The two teams. Yeah. Imagine. Hold on. By the way, let's think about this for a second. You telling me that? Oh yeah, Winnipeg is going to be the most dominant team in the CFL. Okay, they got 2 losses. Who would they lose to? Well, it's probably Calgary. It's probably Saskatchewan. No, it's Montreal. It's Hamilton. Yeah, I'll say this. You're right. You're right, Bubba. All the good feels now will be dampened if they lose to Montreal. But on the other side, this game now means more because of what happened this past weekend.
Yeah, this is a tough game for Hamilton here, partly because it's in Montreal, partly because Montreal is feeling their Cheerios a little bit, partly because they're coming off a bye week, and the Ticats, they got banged up a bit in that game. I don't, we'll wait and see a little longer to see who felt what there. If Dylan Wynn is, he's pretty important. Against Trevor. He knows Trevor Harris inside out, and it's very, very important. And Trevor plays well against Hamilton generally. I mean, he's either really great or really terrible actually against Hamilton, right? And he's capable of, of putting some. I'm a little concerned about that Hamilton defense giving up. And it's happened too often in the last three games. Well, it's happened in the second half of the season so far. They later in the second half, they're giving up too many drives that seem too easy to me. Too many quick plays too quickly. You saw that a couple of games there. It's been tough.
All right, guys, let's shift gears here. Keeping with the quarterback story, which I thought was just wild. Vernon Adams Jr. finally gets in there, leads the Lions to an overtime win on the road in Calgary, beating the Stampeders. Now the question is, because I think there was a feeling without Nathan Rourke that the Lions were about to go into a huge losing slump and Calgary were going to almost inherit second place. Who are the favorites right now, Steve, to get second in the West?
Well, just because of the season series, which means that Calgary has to finish ahead of them, I'm going to have to say it's BC. That is the favorite here, because they, this game this weekend is huge. It's just absolutely huge, especially given everything else that happened afterwards in the game, and it's going to be pretty bitter. But I think that was a real important. I'm not big on statement games but they can make a difference. That they know that they can actually do it now. That they don't have to just do it. The defense isn't going to have to pick off 2 for 6. To win the game, and they're pretty even, those two teams, in a lot of areas when you look at them, and both of them are going with not the people who started. They would have expected at the start of the season to be starting the games right now at quarterback.
Yes.
So both of them have excellent running backs. What the only 2,000 rushers in the league, right?
Yep.
Are they on those two teams?
I think they're close to 1,000 yards each. I'd have to go back.
Yeah, close. Yeah.
Yeah,
Lions might have 3 receivers hit 1,000 yards.
Yeah, and who would have thought that? I mean, I thought Vernon did a hell of a job for a former Tiger Cat wide receiver.
Well, for Calgary, it's weird because they are on one side regression for a good way. That they could be better. Is that I think 5 times this year they've lost the 1-score game. That is a way of evening out. So maybe Calgary's a little bit better than we thought. But then on the other side, they're 0-5 against the Lions and the Bombers. So they've shown against the best teams, they're not doing so well. So I think I give a slight edge to the Lions. I'd like to know when Delvin Breaux, I know he got hurt, and TJ Lee. I'd be curious to see what the extent of those injuries. But what I like is that look what Vernon Adams Jr. has to play with. He's got Dominic Rhymes, he's got Burnham, Keon Hatcher, Lucky Whitehead, and as you mentioned, Steve, James Butler. There is a lot of weapons for Vernon Adams to play with. So I think it's close, but I would give a slight edge to BC.
The crazy thing with Vernon Adams Jr. is, I mean, in Hamilton, Johnny Manziel got in his way, but he tends to get himself in his own way. Like he's such an exuberant guy, kind of always wants to do too much. Don't you think, Steve?
Yeah,
Sometimes?
I think that's probably true. And he's one of the kind of guys you hope for, though, too, right? He's a very honest, upfront kind of guy. And, you know, another guy who tends to wear his heart on the sleeve a little bit, actually tries to do. And I was, you know, facetiously making that joke about being a wide receiver, but that's what he was. He was, you know, when he realized it actually wasn't Johnny who beat him out. It was Dane.
You're right.
Because Johnny was making that team no matter what. So
That's true.
it was between Dane and Vernon. And so that was kind of the way it went there. So, but he's resilient. You know, there's a lot of players in this league. This is the league, I would say, of any league that I've ever seen anywhere. This is the league full of more resilient players than anybody else, because almost everybody here, particularly the Americans, have been here because they weren't wanted somewhere else, right? And something happened to them on the way up, whether it was unfair or fair or body size or just never accepted or came from small colleges, all of those things.
And played in crazy leagues you never heard of before. Just look at the career path of McLeod Bethel Thompson.
Exactly.
You know what's funny? And I'm going to go off script. You don't have to answer this, but I'm wondering what would make for us, like people that work in the business, the most interesting story. And Winnipeg, I'm going to put it last. They're winning 3 straight Grey Cups. We haven't seen that in a while, but Vernon Adams winning. If Dane Evans finally got it done, McLeod Bethel Thompson, like there's all.
I know where you're heading on that, and you're right about Macbeth.
Yeah. Like just that, or Jake Mayer, you know, taking over Bo Levi Mitchell. Yep. Ooh, I feel like I'm already talking about my column 3 weeks from now. About what is the most interesting storyline? Because the most boring one would be if Winnipeg did it.
It really is, though. Now, guys, sticking with that contest, apparently, and I didn't see it. I mean, I did see. I think we all saw just what we saw at the end of the game, and apparently there was all kinds of monkey business following the Lions and Stampeders game on and off the field, and there was some kind of issue that went on in the parking lot. Police were involved. Steve Milton, what does Commissioner Randy Ambrosie do here?
He's got to examine it very, very carefully. And you cannot have, I think there's going to be some players. First of all, the 2 that were involved in the original incident, they got thrown out. So they automatically have to be reviewed. And it might be that they missed this game too, but I think there might be some other players this before whatever happened in the parking lot afterwards that are going to have to be looked at, because there was some stuff that went on there. There were some punches thrown afterwards, and you can't sort of have discipline in one area and can't have morality in one area and not in another one, such as this. And and guys came off the side of the field to come into the play. I think there's going to be more than one player suspended for this game, and I think there has to be. If not, why are we having disciplinary supplementary discipline? So I think that, and then let's see what happens with if the cop stuff. There's the wildly varying reports on this. If you talk to what Danny Austin was told, if you talk to what Farhan was told about what happened in the parking lot, they seem to be at odds, those 2 views. And that's just 2 views. That doesn't count people who are quote unquote normal citizens who might have seen this and seen what the other things were. But when the police are involved, then Randy has to really pay attention.
Suspensions have to happen.
Exactly.
Listen, what happens when guys get in fights or there's dirtiness on the field of play?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a fine. I mean, if it's like really bad, then whatever the punishment is, what happens on the field of play, you got to multiply that by many factors. If it happens in a parking lot, near a locker room, just around the general public. Yeah. Now that heightens it, and having the police there heightens it more. To me, this is a no doubter. If there is clear evidence of the sucker punch of all that, then suspensions need to happen.
And I agree 100% on that. But I also think need to look at, and this is where Calgary was more at fault than the BC here. Players came from the sidelines who weren't on the field, so that's a big thing. That's a really big thing when it comes to safety of players and all of those kinds of things.
I think the optics are horrible, right?
Yeah.
Like, I guess I can use this word, that this kind of punk ass behavior, in my opinion, cannot happen and makes the Canadian Football League look bush league if suspensions aren't handed out. This cannot be encouraged.
Yeah.
Meeting in parking lots, that sounds like high school behavior to me, Matt.
That's
this
why.
This can't happen.
Swift, punitive, do that immediately, and then it starts to lower just how bad it looks. It's not going to look good in any case, but you punish right away, and then you know what we do? We move on. We then move on. There's no more debate.
One of the problems is, of course, is going to be appeals. So it may not take effect in this game. And this is the game it should take effect in because they're playing each other. I've always hated that about suspensions. You end up, the suspended player doesn't play against another team, which affects, these are against each other, but you're going to have, if there's an appeal thing, it better happen in a hurry. And there's going to be an appeal. If
that's the case there, I mean, I guess the commissioner has to automatically be at that next game. Like he has to be there.
In case, exactly. In case there has to be a hearing then, and also to show sort of authority. Right. And that we think it's, I think he probably should be there anyway, just because BC, it's a big city. And suddenly we're looking at maybe 3 big cities in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right. We're looking at the 3 major markets where the game's been struggling in the previous few years at the gate. You could look at Montreal, Toronto, and BC all in the playoffs.
Folks, you could win a trip to the Ticats October 29th game away in Ottawa. Could be a huge playoff showdown where Journey Rewards is going to take you there. Now, simply hit ticats.ca/journey-rewards to enter to win 2 tickets on Via Rail for the hotel and the game. Who knows what could happen there? That could be all kinds of fun. You certainly want to get there and be a part of that. And especially for our fans, because this is a sort of ticket that you want to be part of. Again, that's Journey Rewards, and you want to join them, and they'll give you the details, and I will give you the details a little bit later here. Now, following their home loss to the Elks, Riders QB Cody Fajardo calls out fans at Mosaic Stadium saying, "I feel like the whole world is basically against us." Guys, did this reaction, Matt, surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me. If we're going to talk earlier about Dane Evans and the impact of losing, on not performing, what it can have on you, it doesn't surprise me that Cody is feeling this. He hasn't performed at the same level since 2019. But the thing is, this is a no-win situation for him. Going after the fans is never a good idea because it's not going to solve anything. It's not going to make anything better. You're a quarterback. Your whole life is designed to go and say boring cliches to give people like us nothing to talk about. Fajardo needed to go full cliche in this moment. I feel for him, just not been able to do his job as well as he wants, but I just don't think it helps him or the team.
That has it exactly. That encapsulates it. I understand it.
Yeah.
I think it's a reflection, though, of what it looks like from the outside with Saskatchewan right now. There's been a lot of issues with that team right from the start, and there's pressure. We watched this in Hamilton last year. We watched it. We've watched it in many, many places where you have Calgary a couple of years ago, where you have the Grey Cup, and you've got a team that you think can get there, and then suddenly they aren't quite what you thought they were going to be. And everybody can feel it, especially in a small place like Saskatchewan and Hamilton, because you're constantly reminded. It's not like the players are, they're in the same lineup at the grocery store that we are, and they feel it. And of course, the stuff that went on earlier, they had some on-field incidents there. It just hasn't felt right all year there, and I think that kind of came to the surface there. But Matt's right. I think it's up to the quarterback to sort of get that into the right position. I think you mentioned it. I think you want to tell people, hey, we're all on the same side, aren't we? Like if your fans are a little bit behind you, like you can help us out here, but I don't think you need to come down that hard on, particularly on that fan base, because they're critical anyways.
Yeah, it's the tale as old as time. Fans boo.
Yeah, and that's part of the price of a ticket.
That's what I kind of thought, because again, and all three of us saw the game. I thought the fans did their part in cheering on the Riders when they scored a go-ahead touchdown with under 2 minutes remaining. When the Elks took the field, when Trevor Cornelius took his offense on the field, I thought the Mosaic Stadium was as loud as it was all game long. Mm-hmm. And I thought that's them doing their job. And they were let down. Mm-hmm. They were let down and lost to a team. First of all, they lose to Chris Jones, right? Yeah. And they lose to the Elks. Like, I'm sorry, it's the Elks. And the Riders, I think, their fans hold themselves to a higher standard. So, I mean, if they're going to boo, and I know Cody's had some issues over the years with fans booing him, but doesn't he have to grow a tougher skin here?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you got to grow a skin for yourself and on behalf of the team, which is what Matt was saying earlier. And you really have to do that. And I think he probably maybe regrets the severity of I didn't see the conference, but I read the stuff. The severity of what he said, but again, the idea, like, you can say that in a positive way to switch people around. I've watched for years Simone Lawrence do exactly that, because he's played on mostly good teams here, but on the couple of years when they weren't 0-8 and the start most of this year, and he's been able to kind of massage that a little bit to say, hey, we sort of understand that's part of the passion, right? So now you've switched it around to a positive thing. It's part of the passion, not you're trying to screw us.
I think Morreale and Hitch had some days where the fan base were not polite.
No,
right?
That's right. And that means they care. Now, the other thing we talk of, this is like almost too obvious to say, but football is one of those games, and players talk about it all the time, that because they only play once a week at best, the odd time we get one of the sandwich games, but you are defined for a whole week by your results of that last one. You try not to, you look ahead, but you really are defined by whether you won or lost that last week. Same thing for the fans. If you're a passionate fan, right? They don't get another chance at this for another week. So this is what they're living with. They're living with the sag. I watched it happen in Hamilton all this week, like the downness of around the whole city. Every time somebody sees you and says, and they may recognize that you've got some connection to the team, they have, and they're not happy when they talk. They may not be bitter, but they're down.
Yep.
Right. And well, of course you're going to react in a way like that. And players should understand that too, because they know that about themselves. They know what it feels like for the next week. Well, the fans are the same.
Last one to you, Matt, on that?
Yeah, no, really not much else to add, and it's as I said, tails all the time. Fans boo. If they win next week, fans aren't going to boo. And you hope that Cody Fajardo can compartmentalize and not take it personal. The fans aren't booing Cody, saying he's a bad person. They're booing out of emotion because they want more from their team and they're not getting it.
I think I'd be concerned if I was in Regina.
I'd be concerned Craig about Dickinson? That team. You're Craig Dickinson, and you don't even, like, maybe you go to the crossover if that happens even, and you lose. Yeah, if I'm Craig Dickinson, I'm really concerned. This has been, putting aside, like you said, the wins and losses, the discipline issues have really put the Riders, who I always thought were everyone's sweethearts and darlings, they look kind of ugly right now.
Yeah, and they're my worst nightmare, that they would represent the East in a hometown Grey Cup. That's my worst nightmare. You guys know what I feel about the crossover, anyways.
Yes. Folks, if it is assumed that Zach Collaros is the leading candidate for most outstanding player to repeat, I guess, in that situation, who would be his number one competitor, Matt? At this stage of the season?
Nathan Rourke. I'm still going to just say, I was going to say Nathan Rourke, but if I'm going to give it to an active player, what about Sean Lemon? Second in sacks with 10, four forced fumbles, fumble recovery, or the guy that we just saw, and I always mispronounce his last name, the Winnipeg rookie, Sean.
That's who I was going to say. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. who's third in receiving yards, first in touchdown receptions, averaging almost 19 yards a catch. I might go with and again, correct me here. How do I mispronounce Dalton Schoen? It's just Schoen, right? Am I overcompensating and am I leaking confidence right now? Because I would go with the rookie wideout.
Well, first of all, he's the shoe-in for the rookie of the year, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just, I mean, I can't see anything else. And second of all, about showing that it's related to Zach in a way. Because if you look at he did this with Ellingson when he was around, when he helped make him, he's always got a guy he makes that comes out of nowhere that Zach sees something in him and finds him. It's happened everywhere he's played. And then goes to him and then everybody else goes, oh yeah, he's even better than we thought he was, but Zach sees it first. And that's one of the great things that Collaros, I mean, to me, unless there's something really horrible here, Zach's got to be shown. But you had mentioned, I can't see it coming out of the East. I can't even see who comes out of the East as an MVP. I mean, the closest thing right now, I mean, is it Bethel Thompson coming out of the East? Maybe there's a couple of defensive players you got to look at and say, whoa, well, I like those guys, but I don't know that we're in a situation where you would have an MOP and a top defensive player coming at least.
It's you know what, it's the nature of the game. It's a bit of a down year. There's only 9 teams. Right. You go to the NFL, there could be 20 bad quarterbacks, so we can just focus on Rodgers or Brady. And I do remember the year where Solomon Eliminian won the MOP back in 2004. Yeah. These things can happen.
Yeah, they can. Yeah. But I just can't see it anybody else but Zach. But I at this point in time, these next few games are going to determine who comes out of the East. And it could be somebody who didn't even start the season in the East. It could be Trevor if he takes his team on a march but it'd be irrelevant anyways, because it's going to be hands down victory for Zach. I mean, he got 26 touchdown passes already. I mean, one of the funniest things, if Nathan hadn't got hurt, Zach is giving us one of those seasons for the ages where Winnipeg could have won. They still have a good chance of tying their all-time wins record or maybe beating it. Zach would have gone like maybe 35 touchdown passes, one of the great seasons of all time, and not even one MOP in his division.
Yeah.
Well, hold on, guys. You just teasing something here for me, and maybe I'm just cocking. I'm crazy here, but is there a world that Nathan Rourke, Steve, could win this with what he did, and you've seen it longer than both of us here, Matt and myself. It was incredible. It really was fun to watch. Is there a possibility he could win MOP just on his short sample size?
No. Short sample size.
Yeah. Right. No, can't.
Brilliant, but short sample size.
Yeah. Yeah. League wouldn't allow it as well. It'd be bad. It'd be a bad look. It'd be hilarious. It'd be funny. It'd be fascinating. And other adjectives I could use. But in the end, it's going to be Collaros.
And you talked about McLeod Bethel Thompson, and I'm going to be honest here, and I've said it on television. I want to believe that McLeod Bethel Thompson is not. I don't even know how to say his name sometimes. I want to believe he's not a great quarterback. But Steve, sometimes he keeps proving me wrong. In fact, a lot of the times he keeps proving me wrong. Yeah, and even inside that organization, there's always been a little thing about is he the leader type of guy, and he doesn't feel like that sometimes. But his record. He wins games. And again, if he takes a team like that, everybody expected them to be pretty good, but they also expected they'd be injured all year because of the age of the superstars that they kept signing. And the fact that, the guys hadn't played together and they're trying to stick them all together and coaching and all, all of those kinds of things. But if if they win 3 more and the 10-win season, you really got to look at it, right? You really have to look at that. And, you take a look, is there anybody in Ottawa? Not particularly. The guy who's leading the league in sacks, perhaps. Mike, I mean, he's probably kind of, and actually, I'm not even sure that McLeod is at this point in time.
I'm not even sure he's the MVP on his team, because you got a guy like McManus, right? And who's probably who could come out of there as the dual winner, at least out of Toronto, as defense and MLP as well. But it's just
Ackland, maybe?
And Ackland would be the other one.
We were looking at Ottawa's record. That's what's going to hurt him.
Yeah, I mean, that would Ottawa would have to almost win out for that to happen.
Yeah.
But if they do, it's not going to happen without Ackland doing something big.
Well, guys, let me just do this again here, because I really screwed it up here earlier. Folks, you could win a trip to see the Tiger Cats October 29th game away in Ottawa with Journey Rewards. Simply hit ticats.ca/journey-rewards to enter to win 2 Ticats tickets on Via Rail, hotel and game tickets, plus a chance at other prizes, including an autographed Ticats jersey or $250 a gift card, folks. We all like that, to the Ticats shop. So go on the road with the Ticats to Ottawa with Journey Rewards.
It's been a good trip.
Isn't that a great trip? I mean, and they're doing a similar trip for this weekend's game in Montreal, which I guess, I mean, what a great place to go hang out for a couple of days, Montreal, and watch a football game, especially one that means something. And
then even the Ottawa one, given the fact also it's Halloween, so it'll be a bit zany in the area, but that's both of them are in great neighborhoods. I mean, You come out of the stadium and you're going to have food and drink, and and going in, it's fantastic.
Guys, it's been awesome having you guys around here for this week's CFL This Week edition. Matthew, obviously, we see you on 1050. We do catch you on CFL.ca, but if the fans want to contact you, how do they do so?
You can get me on Twitter at mcauz56, and you can praise me for picking Hamilton to beat Winnipeg. Of course, I did go 1-2 this week, so I had a losing week. mcauz56 on Twitter, probably the easiest way.
Steve, how do we catch up with you?
Spec.com and obviously I tweet. I don't tweet as much as Matthew and a lot of the other guys at CFL do.
But people, buy a newspaper.
Keep us in business. Yeah,
the tactile version of holding a newspaper, way better than online. It is, in terms of value for your dollar. Like I was in Boston yesterday. You know what I did? I went to the local place, got the local Boston newspaper. I always like buying the paper at the airport. Go get the Hamilton Spectator.
Well, and again, I mean, I understand there's a certain age demographic that watches us here that doesn't see it that way. And one of the reasons we advertise Spec.com at the games is because, it's very important for us as well. So, I've swung around a little bit on that, Matt, believe it or not, for an old guy. I'm an online guy now.
I like to hold the newspaper.
Yeah,
it tells a story. Yeah,
I do too. You just said it. There is something, I don't know, again, maybe we're all being a bunch of old men here. There is something about grabbing your coffee or whatever the case is, or just sitting back and grabbing the newspaper and reading it. Like it just feels right.
Well, it's a change too, because we spend so much time on our screens.
Yes.
Yes.
But again, I'm a big supporter of online journalism because, for one thing, sometimes stories can be a little longer there and more detailed because of that, and they can also get out there quicker too. That's the other part of it, and I embrace both of those things, which is you won't find too many people my age saying.
Hey guys, thanks again for joining us here, folks. As we do it every Monday here on the CFL This Week, talking about the top topics of the league, sometimes controversial, sometimes about the game, sometimes, as we see, stuff that maybe not on the field, but we are going to talk about it, and we're going to be quite honest about it. So we appreciate you listening or watching on YouTube. Like, subscribe. Again, you can catch us on your favorite podcast catcher. We get this out every Monday for you. Once again, I'm Bubba O'Neil, and this has been the CFL This Week on the Ticats Audio Network.
The CFL This Week with Bubba O'Neil. Subscribe, like, and get the deepest takes on Canada's game every Monday.